Growing up, a common sentiment I often heard was that the youth will save us. Being the youth at the time, I believed it. And despite how bleak things currently are, radical optimism is what keeps me going. People under the age of 45 as a political group continue to demand change that only the left can meaningfully deliver. But not every individual of the youth will save us. The life of JD Vance, the first millennial vice president, is a tale of what happens when a millennial chooses to be evil. My name is June Sternbach.
My name is Josh Borman.
This is Ill-Conceived, a podcast about natalism. Josh,
What?
We're back.
What? We're back. Holy shit, we're back.
We're back. Thank you. Yeah, thank you yet again for being back with me here.
You're welcome.
To talk about the wonderful things like people giving birth and having children, things we love to talk about and think about. I don't know what this bit is right now. I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing either. I rarely do. I just keep talking and eventually something happens. I know you have been insanely busy, hence why we had to take another week off. Our babies are just going to have to get used to the fact that sometimes we don't come home, I think is what it comes down to.
we stay out a little bit later
That's right.
for cigarettes, but
That's right.
really are getting cigarettes. We are, and we're just
and we
stuck in
really
traffic.
do love you. It's just, it's complicated.
Yeah. You know, there was the whole InfoWars cycle. Now it's been stalled yet again a little bit.
It's not over yet.
Still not entirely resolved. Alex Jones is truly one of the most evil to ever do it. So all of that to say, thank you for your patience. So anyways, we're back. Today, we're going to be talking about JD Vance and Usha Vance. I think, this is ultimately going to be a discussion mostly about JD Vance, but I feel like especially how the Vances are framing their marriage in the White House, I think it's really important to sort of frame that up with Usha Vance as well and see what she's up to, what she's been doing in the last year.
They're trying to present themselves as the ideal American family, it seems like.
They're about to have their fourth baby very soon. Before we get into the Vances, the tale of two Vances, we have some mail. We got some great mail from last episode.
How did we receive it? How did we receive this mail? What was this mail perhaps packaged in?
It's the mailbag, which you can email at illconceivedpod@gmail.com. You can send us your thoughts.
Just the mailbag. It's like any other mailbag.
No, it's the world famous mailbag. It's the world famous.
It's the world famous mailbag.
Yeah, I'm putting shame on just how famous it is. I feel bad. I take it all back. I take it all back. It's famous. It is. It's always been famous.
We're just kind of downplaying it. We want to humble brag a little bit about the world famous mailbag. Who might have heard of it?
Yeah. It's not it's not the only thing that we have here, but it's pretty important. This one today is from an anonymous listener, and it's titled "We Can Always Tell" regarding benevolent sexism and trans identities.
I do feel like it's important to note here that "we can always tell" is the thing where it's capitalized and non-capitalized. So really, I think it would be best read, "We can always tell."
Yeah, very mockingly. it's the SpongeBob meme. Everyone's
exactly.
seen it. Hi, June and Josh. I'm a girl's girl. Sorry, Josh.
Wrecked.
Thank you. I'm a new listener who found your pod from your frequent guest appearances in the Nate Bethia cinematic universe, and it has quickly become one of my favorites. I really appreciate how thorough and specific y'all are with your research and discussions. Your recent-ish mailbag discussion about the insidiousness of benevolent sexism really struck a chord with me, and I wanted to share some of my perspectives and experiences with it as a trans woman. My dad is from a very old school, very waspy Southern family, with all of the cultural baggage that comes with. One of my earliest memories is of us walking the family dog while he explained why men must walk on the outside of the sidewalk and women and children must walk on the inside. If a car jumps the curb or drives through a puddle in the gutter, my dad told me that it was a man's job to take that blow for his wife and kids, even if it kills him.
That's such a great intersection of Southern chivalry with unthinking car culture.
It's the type of guy that's always when I'm in a restaurant, I always have all the doors in sight. I'm always watching. I'm always observing. It's the same mindset. He would also stress the importance of not discussing vulgar or violent topics around women because it could upset them, how important it is for men to stand when a woman enters or leaves a room, the proper way to pull a woman's chair out for her, and all that gone with the wind, antebellum, Southern gentleman nonsense. You might think that this very patriarchal worldview would have destroyed any chance of him accepting me once I came out, but hilariously, that wasn't the case. It is definitely something he struggled with, and I could tell it wasn't really clicking for the first year or so after I came out and started HRT. The turning point for him seemed to be when I started passing consistently as a young woman. One afternoon, we were out to lunch and he saw me get catcalled by a strange man when I ran across the street to feed the meter. He was furious on my behalf, and from that point on, it was like a switch in his brain had been flipped from son to daughter. He started insisting that I had to walk on the inside of the sidewalk, would insist on holding all doors for me, even after he started using a cane full time, and would make occasional half jokes, half threats to the men I dated about treating me right. Pretty standard old school dad stuff, but it's fascinating to me how swift and total the mindset shift was for him. He stopped calling me buddy or kiddo, like my brother, and started calling me honey and sweetie, like my sister. He also stopped pushing hard for me to enter the business world like him, and was delighted when I chose nonprofit work and early childhood education instead. At the same time, I was starting to notice benevolent sexism creeping into my life in other ways. The 6 or so years I spent legally and medically transitioning are a bit of a blur, but one of my clearest memories from that time is of a friend's going away party at a bar. She was a trans woman around my age who had decided to move to the Pacific Northwest because of all the transphobic street harassment she experienced, even in liberal neighborhoods of Chicago. I remember this confusing me because while I have experienced plenty of street harassment, to the best of my knowledge, none of it was related to me being trans. At the party, we went up to the bar together so I could buy her next round. And the difference in the way the bartender treated us was like night and day. He was very open and friendly with me while he mixed my cocktail, and didn't seem to notice my friend at all. When it was her turn to order, his entire demeanor visibly shifted. His affect became flat and monotone. His face was a mix of confusion and mild disgust. And when he turned back to me so I could pay, he went back to the warm, flirty vibe he'd given me before. Guys, this really fucked with me. It was so freaking blatant. Before that, I had known that I passed pretty well, but my dysphoria was still pretty bad, and I tended to focus on the times when I didn't. It really made me reckon with the privilege that comes with passing and being perceived as a conventionally attractive white woman, and really drove home to me just how fake all of these old school truths about gender dynamics are. It made me realize why so many cis women are reluctant to confront or accept the benevolent sexism in their lives. It's insidious. It can feel good or gender affirming, and it's really hard to notice if you're not looking for it, especially if that's the way you've always experienced the world. Perhaps most interesting to me, I see this benevolent sexism play out the same way even when the person doing it knows I'm trans. These experiences, and the countless others that came after, have convinced me that a lot of modern transphobia, particularly trans misogyny, has nothing to do with trans people per se. I think it causes a similar short circuit of rage that Obama's election in 2008 did with racists who didn't think they were racist. When trans people are able to be accepted by society as our authentic selves, I think that forces a lot of cis men to realize that they do treat men and women differently. It forces a lot of cis women to see that the world is not as kind to everyone as it is to them, and how quickly that warm, fuzzy benevolence can give way to cruel indifference or active hostility. Anyway, I hope this all made sense. If you're ever in Chicago, the first round of handshakes is on me. I have the honor to be apparently one of your sexier babies. Fuck you, Palantir, I ain't telling you shit.
Got him.
Amazing.
It's a great way to sign off, too, in lieu of a name.
Yeah. Fuck Palantir. Thank you so much for this email.
Yeah.
I think, this is genuinely such a, so fascinating, especially the perspective of, your dad perceiving you finally, seeing how, you were treated when you transitioned and when you would be treated as, a cis woman would be by men, and seeing that in front of him, in front of your father, it really, I mean, it makes sense. Gender is performative in a way, where it's it's a performance. It's about when so many TERFs are oh, you can't change your gender. It's well, gender, it's a way to you perceive people. Your gender is your expression on some level. There is, of course, medical transition, which helps with that. But I think it just really reinforces this shit is all about public perception at the end of the day. And the way that people perceive you is how they do in fact treat you.
It's interesting in the context of the natalism thing, too. The people who are most avid about natalism are the people who can only understand gender as a function of biological sex. But once you get to a certain point with gender performance, once the gender performance is, for lack of a better way of putting it, believable enough that you then perceive somebody who is, say, trans as cis, or let's say somebody who's infertile, right? A woman who is infertile, but you're like, damn, she'd be a great mother for my kids, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All of these are different functions of a very complex social performance that is constantly being given and received. And even though that performance does have a relationship with procreation itself, it doesn't begin and end there, regardless of how many fucking people will tell you that, like, oh, it's all about childbirth. It's all about procreation. Sex is all about one man and one woman united in holy matrimony so that they can continue the species. That's not how this shit works, and it's never how it's worked.
No one thinks like that. Like, if you're just out on the street, unless you're like a freak, unless you're one of these like terminally online TERFs that wants to fool themselves into thinking that's how this all works, it's just not. It's just it's no one functions like that in a day-to-day format. That's just not how people are. And TERFs, I think that's why they find people transitioning as such a threat to them. I mean, it threatens this sort of like patriarchal worldview, this sort of control-based society that not even that anti-feminists and conservatives want to impose on people, because if you can break those structures, if you can break those structures of gender and analyze
what else
them
can
in that
you break,
way,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like you really show how ingrained like misogyny and the patriarchy really is, and especially like as it's inherent to capitalism, and it like you can start connecting all these dots. It's fascinating. Yeah.
People like Joe Rowling being like, well, what is a woman? I'll tell you. It's the gender that provides the large gametes. And it's like, okay, look at this person. Do they provide the large gametes? Can you tell me right now, that person, do they? You fucking can't, you moron. Like,
and it's one of those things where it's like still these days, they've been like TERFs online have been doing this for years, where they'll do the song and dance of, oh, you'll never be a real woman. You'll never be a biological woman. And it's like, well, that's not really like, for me, I know it's a lot. Trans people are not a monolith, of course, but for me, I'm not necessarily bothered by like being transgender. I guess like that's sort of inherent to my identity and like who I am and like where I'm at right now. So like it is like I'll be out in public. I think I sometimes pass fairly all right. And, you know, I've gotten catcalled and comments from men as well. And it's a fascinating experience being perceived that way by men. It's so fascinating. It does. I've had these thoughts, especially recently in the last like couple of months. So this email really does resonate with me.
Well, I think to the point of weird freaks who can't stop thinking about other people's bodies and how they ought to be presented and or controlled. Maybe there's no better example of that than today's subject, right?
Oh my God, JD Vance, the most millennial individual of all time.
Daniel Vance. What does JD actually stand for? I feel like I knew at one point, but
I'll be honest, I did a lot of research for this episode, but I've never once looked it up. I just know that it's not his actual like birth name, right?
Oh, his name is James Donald. That's his birth name, James Donald. But then he changed it. He changed it from James Donald Bowman to James David Vance.
What?
How did I not know that?
Yeah, the Vance, it just came out of nowhere.
Awesome.
I think, you know, we're not going to be talking about it too much today, but I think it comes from his like desire to, at one point, distance himself from that like Appalachia roots.
He wanted to sound more
like
waspy.
A serious exactly, more elevated, smart individual, away from those savages out in the mountains. But let's just get through the basics real quick before we start diving into the more natalism of it all. So, you know, JD Vance, famously a former Donald Trump critic, he would compare Donald Trump to Hitler, called Donald Trump a threat to the country, now turned into his vice president after a barely successful Senate race in Ohio in 2022. We were so close to a better world without him in it.
People don't like this guy. I feel like that is something that has been said many times, but it bears repeating. He's just kind of weird, and he's got an upsetting demeanor. And were it not for the fact that there is a tremendous amount of capital behind him, which we're about to talk about, he wouldn't have gotten to the point that he's at now. He does not have raw animal charisma. He doesn't have the ability to do retail politicking, nor does he even seem particularly good at like the horse trading side of things. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, he's sort of fallen upwards through his entire life. But his education, he graduated Ohio State University in 2009.
The Ohio State University, Jim?
Okay, I got to put some fucking respect on that name. I'm not familiar. Look, I don't know anything about this place.
Ohio State University? No, fuck Ohio, baby. Go blue.
He then got a law degree from Yale. That's a school I know about, and that's a bad one. That's a lot of evil comes from Yale Law School. He graduated in 2013, and then 1 year later, he married his now wife, Usha Vance. And in 2019, one of my favorite aspects about him is that he used to be an atheist, but then it did adult conversion to Catholicism.
Warning,
he is an adult Catholicism
Warning,
convert.
Danger Will Robinson. This is not good, folks. You never want to hear about an adult convert to Catholicism.
Always a really bad sign about what's to come. Probably the deepest, like any convert to any religion generally is going to be a little odd, but there's something about adult Catholic converts that really just take the fucking cake. You've heard all of it probably before. I mean, he's the vice president
of the United States.
Yeah, he is the vice president of, sadly, this country until it balkanizes. I don't know when that's going to happen though. Probably very soon. This is a podcast about natalism. You know this. We love this. We love talking about natalism. So we're going to be spending some time talking about the Vance family, Usha and JD, because I do think that they are probably the biggest believers in natalism as a project that we've seen within the government in a long time, especially at this level. They talk about this all the time. They talk about birth rates all the time. They talk about like children endlessly, especially JD. You know, we're talking about JD right now, but before we get more to him, I personally just don't think Donald Trump himself is really a big believer in natalism as a project. I think he probably believes that if he does certain things, he will get like, I don't know, certain voters on his side. So he'll just do that like sort of song and a dance. He doesn't really care about natalism per se.
I mean, I think he cares insofar as he's super racist. And so the demographic stuff probably concerns him.
For sure.
But nor do I think that he's like, we gotta make sure that we get those birth rates up as a matter of policy. I think it's more, what do we do to make sure that the country remains white? Because that's his primary concern at the end of the day.
Totally agree. Like, I don't think we're going to see him at NatalCon ever. He's not like intellectual about it, I guess is like my position on Donald Trump himself.
And also in terms of the horse trading side of it, he doesn't owe the natalists anything in the way that he does, say, the evangelical Christians. I don't know if you saw, but like a week or so ago, there was an event called America Reads the Bible, which was a marathon where they had people reading the entire Bible. And it was just a bunch of different people from different PACs and, you know, aligned organizations.
Video game speedrunning if it was just dog shit.
Exactly. What if GDQ was evil? And Donald Trump did a pre-recorded bit where he read a little bit from Second Chronicles.
If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent to the prayer that is...
We talked about this on the Worst of All Possible Worlds. There was a guy who prophesied in big air quotes, that Donald Trump would become president and cited the Bible as a reason for this. And the verse that he ended up reading for this thing was that verse.
Oh, my
Which is crazy.
God. He really does think of himself as a Jesus Christ-like figure.
Absolutely a messianic figure, yes.
Oh, my God.
Point with all of this, though, is Trump does that sort of thing for the evangelicals every so often because they deliver him votes en bloc. Natalists don't represent a constituency in the same way, so Trump is not going to pander to them in that way.
Interestingly, I do think JD Vance maybe is the most representative of natalists as a political group, like pro-natalists. Again, I don't think they're very substantial. I think this is a very small world, but I think they're fairly well endowed in the money fashion. They have funded JD Vance's career for most of it.
Peter Thiel money behind him, so how could you
exactly.
not? You know?
Speaking of Peter Thiel, he was sort of heralded as a protege of him, and he was discovered by Thiel, and he personally hired Vance. He funded his campaign for Senate with millions of dollars, and I do think they're a major reason as to why he is currently the vice president. I think Peter Thiel pulled a lot of strings to make that happen, to put him as his guy in there.
And they built an identity for him more or less out of whole cloth. That, for me, was one of the most interesting things about JD Vance, was the way that they built this story around him of like Appalachian boy who made good, when in reality, he was sort of a product that was built by elites for elites.
Yeah.
And his entire narrative was basically saying, yeah, fuck all those people back home. They deserve to be addicted to heroin and painkillers. I'm better than them.
Yeah, it's fascinating that JD Vance is almost entirely a project of Peter Thiel's from conception to where he is right now. And I do think they bonded over like the shared vision of the future of right-wing politics, where this like sort of tech nationalism, this Christian tech nationalism that we're currently seeing, I think they are heavily overlined views on that as a topic, as a political ideology.
Yeah, the firm that Vance worked for was Mithril Capital, which is one of Peter Thiel's like 5 funds that he operates. We talked a little bit about this in our Peter Thiel episode.
Exactly. And one of those, Palantir, I don't know if you saw this, but they put out a manifesto. It's their view of how they want the tech world to expand their political power beyond where it currently is. Have you read that manifesto?
No, can you link it to me real quick?
A few minutes later.
Some cultures have produced vital advances. Others remain dysfunctional and regressive. That's awesome, dude. Some subcultures are degenerate, perhaps.
I wonder which ones they think are bad. Which ones they think are regressive.
I wonder.
We're not going to spend a lot of time going over this manifesto. It's 22 points. It's from Alex Karp's book. It's just like a summary. But this manifesto that Palantir posted, I think is very representative of sort of how this tech world views itself, right? They think of themselves as an expanding power, that they're sort of complementary to the government, that they're not just like making this tech for, I don't know, apps or anything, but they want to be like modern weapons.
Yeah.
Is sort of what Alex Karp and Peter Thiel seem to want here.
Well, and I saw that, I think you had posted that clip too of Peter Thiel basically saying, we think that tech can replace a lot of functions of the government and get around the inefficiencies that are endemic in a system where people, for instance, vote or do other things. They don't see those components of the process as being necessary. They see them as actually being unnecessary inhibitions for the forward growth of a society or a populace more broadly.
Absolutely. Growth no matter what is like sort of their mindset.
And it's really just statism from first principles. This is not much different from old line fascism. The only real difference is that they are proposing the use of software tools because that's what they are selling.
Yeah. If you want to hear a bit deeper of a dive into this manifesto, Caleb on my other show, Kill the Computer, and I went on Ed Zitron's show, Better Offline. We went through point by point our thoughts on all of these. So if you want to hear more about the manifesto, you can check that out. But I think I'm mentioning this here just to sort of point out that, there is this political project. I think it is, because they also want to make money and make profit. But I do think some of these people truly do believe these things that they say they believe. And JD Vance is a crucial part of their advancement. So in the lead up to the 2024 election, JD Vance had a couple media slip ups relating specifically to natalism.
Little whoopsies in there, little whoopsie dupsie.
Yeah, the one whoopsie that made the most headlines that I think everyone probably did see was when he described several Democratic politicians.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
Oh, see, they're liberal because they don't got a man at home. They're lonely.
This is maybe somewhat beside the point, but that's such a weird turn of phrase. Yeah. They are miserable at their own lives?
He said at. Yeah, I was like
miserable
looking at that.
With their own lives, sure, but miserable at it? Like they're not good at life?
He's just the worst speaker of all time. Part of the reason why no one likes him probably is he can't construct sentences.
That's kind of like me when I'm playing Marathon is I'm like, I am miserable at my own life right now. That's a game that's designed to make you feel miserable at your own life though. So.
Yeah. If it was a joke, like it's a great joke construction, but in terms of like being now the vice president, it doesn't really make that much sense at all. There were a couple other things that I'm genuinely surprised didn't get as much media play because, that one's bad. The cat ladies one, fairly bad. But the other ones, when he was talking about like women, were way more insane, in my opinion. One thing he suggested is that if you have more children, you should get extra votes. So if you have like 5 kids, he at one point suggested, if you have 5 kids, you should get 7 votes with your spouse. You should have 7 votes.
I've got the quote right in front of me. I'm going to read it because it's genuinely something that's so weird that you have to hear it for yourself, I think.
Yeah.
Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than the people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice. And then he got interviewed about this because this was in 2021. He got interviewed about it in 2024. And he said, it was just a thought experiment. Fuck off
with that. No, that's not just a thought experiment. Maybe that's why, it didn't get as much play because, I don't know, some journalists and a lot of outlets are scared to actually challenge some of these people's things that they actually say. But on the surface, that common through line that we've seen throughout this whole show doing this so far is control. Mm-hmm. They should control those votes. They should control their children. They have more power over their children and with their children.
Well, just on the merits, this is such an insane idea to me because it's like, why shouldn't the people who have more kids have more of a stake? It's like, isn't the idea of the stake that the kids are the stake? Like that when the kids grow up, they are going to assert their agency in the world. That is your stake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
I think it perfectly frames how JD Vance and a lot of these conservatives, these far-right conservatives, again, just view children
as property.
As property. They view them as they should exert their control over their children. It is not about their children. It is about the power they can exert.
Because also, when those children do, become of age and go out into the world, then they individually can assert their own agency. And in some cases, that might mean peeling away from the beliefs, structure, and overall livelihood of their parents.
Yeah.
Which obviously conservatives tend to treat as the ultimate betrayal, but that's why they want, when they are younger, to be treated as an asset, essentially. An asset on a balance sheet, right?
And what if one of these children chooses they don't want to have kids or they don't want to participate in the same ideology as their parents? That's also the ultimate betrayal. It's it's just it blows my mind that I think conservatives will just truly don't understand how absurd they sound saying stuff like this about children.
It was like that weird document that we found when we did our episode about homeschooling, or was it Quiverful or homeschooling? You remember that one where it was like that weird website where it was like, if you have 8 kids, and then all 8 of your kids have 8 kids, within 5 generations, we'll be all out of Bort license plates.
Yeah. No, all of this is just made up. All of this stuff is, I love that website. It's straight out of the 1990s still, too, is what's very charming about that evil website. One other thing, though, that he said that I think is equally as insane, but not as like a control sort of way, but just pure policy, is that he thinks that people without children should pay more money in taxes. Their taxes should be raised.
Okay, but this already sort of happens. We have a child tax credit. So like,
but he the framing he uses is raising childless people's taxes, not giving relief to people with children. He wants to raise taxes for people that do not have children. He wants it the other way around, is what he stated.
That's wild, because the net effect of the child tax credit is the same, right? You might end up getting a net refund. You might end up paying less than $0 in taxes in a given year if the money adds up correctly. That's fucking crazy.
This is the level of intelligence that we're working with here.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't
straight out of Yale.
I wouldn't chalk it up to intelligence or lack of intelligence. Going back to our thought about IQ, right? I think it's very tempting to be like, oh, he's a big dum-dum. And I mean, I guess I kind of do think he is a big dum-dum, but
I think he is, but
these ideas are considered. Exactly. It's
intentional. He knows what this is doing. It's sort of punishment to, it's the sort of mindset where you punish your child to get the desired reaction, the desired response. That's sort of, I think, how he's using it here is if we punish people for not having kids, then they will have kids because they don't want to be punished.
The punishments will continue until birth rates improve.
Exactly. Yeah. It's never let's improve people's lives. It's always how can we make lives harder to get the response we want? And that's just another example of it. Absolutely. JD Vance and these natalists would probably call these pro-family policies. But obviously, this is devaluation of people without families and even a devaluation of children almost on a base level.
Yeah, you would think that these people, with all of their rhetoric about, oh, children are a heritage from the Lord, and we sure do love the beautiful relationship that parents have with their children, and isn't it magical and wonderful, and doesn't it reflect our relationship with God as his children? It's so like gross and calculated and craven.
Yeah. This common theme, he's Catholic, but I think the atheism in JD Vance still shines through, where it's like these are policies of a person, of someone on the far right that doesn't have like actual normal religion as their baseline, because far right people with religion are still really bad and evil and have bad policies, but it is a level of, I think, just disturbing policies that I think are genuinely very dangerous. I think if he did any of these 2 policies that we just talked about here, it'd be very dangerous. That would be really bad for this government, and it's really bad. I think it's very dangerous that he is even at the level that he is at in government right now.
And it would be bad sociologically, too. It would be bad for families. This is not a recipe for good, stable, healthy families. This is a recipe for families that have kids because of a financial disincentive to not have kids. Exactly. We are talking about kids that are being brought into the world because the consequences of not doing so would be deleterious. And that's just going to be... That it breaks my brain, genuinely.
Yeah. It's just like so bad. It would be really bad. Thankfully, really the only things that they've done, none of these are either actual government policy or even functioning quite yet. Like we know of the baby bonuses. They talked about baby bonuses, but they didn't really do baby bonuses.
No, they did Trump accounts. And we've talked about this. Trump accounts are just a very half-baked idea. Because the idea of these baby bonuses or baby bonds is that, generally speaking, you would be issuing a child, say, a government bond when they are a baby, which they can cash out at its maturity, which would also be, of course, their rough age of maturity, if it's, say, a 20-year bond. This, on the other hand, is we are going to put $1,000 that has been donated to you by Michael Dell into an index fund. And all that does is pump up the stock market.
Absolutely. It's a weird workaround. I think admission of that baby bonuses will not really be a thing. This was their slickest workaround. And that's launching, I believe, in early July, fairly soon. So when that launches, I think you and I will probably keep track of what's going on, how that operates, just out of pure curiosity. It's going to be weird.
We've talked about Trump accounts on the show a couple times, but I do think it would be fun to do like a mini episode just about it because it is so strange. This idea that like little Timmy working down at the scoop shop, you know, scooping up ice cream all day, making his $6 an hour, that the employer at the scoop shop is going to be like, well, little Timmy, you did such a great job that I'm going to put $1,000 in your Trump account. It's like, this is not how anything works.
Yeah. No, it probably will not work this way. They expire at a certain point. It is one of the most baffling policies I think I've ever seen. And we'll be sure to cover that as that rolls out very soon. And this other thing that they've talked about a little bit and has not happened in any capacity is when Trump once suggested that he would love to give mothers, like, you know, this thing called motherhood medals, an idea that seems to have come straight from our favorite freak family, the Cullens.
Fuck yes.
They admitted at some point that they sent a document to the Trump admin with this idea to be like, oh, you can increase birth rate if you give medals to mothers and families.
I love that. The fact that Trump then went out and said this at some point means that it must have been literally the last thing he read before he went up on stage, because that's how his brain works.
And it was like a mothership event. It was that event where you call himself like the fertility president or whatever bullshit he said like over a year ago at this point.
I also think that there should be motherhood medals, but I think that they should be like, these should be competitive medals.
It should be like the Olympics.
There should be different events.
Yeah. Do the babies compete? Do the children? Is it a competition? Do the mothers compete?
Both. And then there are mother baby duo events as well.
They do synchronized ice skating.
No, I'm thinking like competitive breastfeeding.
If Donald Trump listens to this, he will say that. Yeah.
What baby can consume the most milk within a given period?
Yeah. Have you ever seen Twinks versus Dolls? That New York.
No.
You're a New Yorker. There's for Pride. There's like this thing called Twinks versus Dolls, and there's a cigarette smoking competition.
Nice.
That's like the type of tier of stuff that you can expect. So I saw the mothership medals thing, and I was like, it's an odd policy. It's kind of stupid. It's meaningless overall.
Oh, but let me guess. When you dug into this, there was a twist that you did not see coming.
No, it's rooted. This idea of mothership medals is rooted in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
I could not fucking believe it. You know, when writing this show, I always expect a little Nazism to peek through the cracks. It's rooted in, I think, a lot of the discussions, especially around like eugenics. But I truly did not expect it here, where I believe Nazi Germany was the first country ever to have parent medals, is what they called them. This policy was created to increase the Aryan population growth. And the German Nazi Party called the medal itself the Cross of Honor of the German Mother. And there were bronze, silver, gold medals that were awarded dependent on how many pure blood German children that you had. You would get the gold if you had like 8 children or more. Very fucking weird history there that I've never. Yeah, you had to have 8 Aryan children to get the peak Cross of Honor of the German Mother. I dug a little bit more because I was like, this is fucking crazy that Nazi Germany had this honors system. And I found out like a decade later, the USSR also implemented these, but it wasn't tied to any like ethnic or racial identity. It was just simply awarded for having a high amount of children for the motherland was their policy, is how they put it. So still odd, but definitely not as evil, I don't think.
I will say, I do find any form of like, you get special recognition for having babies. I just find it creepy. That's sort of my base gut reaction is like, I don't like it.
It's just weird, right? It doesn't feel good. The way it frames like parents and mothers as like a purely utilitarian like affair is what I think bothers me about it.
Although I will say the Soviet Union in 1944, those are very different circumstances. You're talking about a population that was decimated by, you know, the siege of Stalingrad and various other German attacks on the Soviet Union. The sheer amount of population collapse that the USSR suffered as a result of Axis incursions was tremendous.
Absolutely. No, that's an incredible point there. I think that's probably why they did that.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a ton of articles on it, like about that period. There's a bit of a Wikipedia article about it that I do have linked in the show notes. If anyone wants to look more into that and that history, I thought it was fascinating. That there's a history of mother metals, just very odd. I think most of this influence of this natalist agenda within this Trump term in particular does come from JD Vance world, this like new tech natalist world that we've been seeing crop up a lot lately, especially, you know, I mean, as we said before, Peter Thiel funded JD Vance, created JD Vance, and the tech world, along with that manifesto, do see themselves as a growing political force. So I think all of this, sort of comes from that world within this administration.
And it's interesting, too, because this is a slightly different group from the group that we talked about in season 1, the evangelical Christians.
Yeah.
They do support this stuff. You know, they are willing to provide tactical support to JD Vance in his pursuit of white birthrights, let's be real.
Yeah.
And so you'll get papers from like the Heritage Foundation being like, oh yeah, this is what we should do, you know, or from Focus on the Family or whatever. But as with so many things in Trump world, it is a tactical alliance. He is not fundamentally their guy.
You're saying JD Vance isn't their guy?
The evangelicals, exactly. He's not their guy. He's a guy that says a lot of things that they like to hear, but he's not their guy. Trump is their guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just also goes to show how Trump is very malleable. You can sort of get him on board with anything if you say it'll help his numbers, if it'll expand his influence and reach. If it performs well, Trump will be on board with just about anything. Because let's be real, I don't like when you were talking about him reading the Bible verse at that one conference.
Yeah. Which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt and laid hold on other gods.
Literally, the only times he has opened the Bible is for shit like that.
Yeah.
Dude is an atheist. He definitely is. It's all political alliances.
Dude is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
You're talking like, hey, Peter Thiel, you're so worried about the Antichrist? Maybe look at the guy who's freaking the Cheeto in the White House, bud. The guy who posted a picture of himself as the Christ. Maybe you should be concerned about him. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that would, if he was concerned about him, that would destroy the working relationship, or not even working relationship, just Donald Trump as a pawn or a tool in that way. Yeah. While doing some of this research about like some of the specifics of JD Vance's pro-natalism ideology, I came across this really fascinating piece titled "Of Childless Psychopath Women and Replacement: JD Vance's Birthright and Immigration Obsessions Have Shared History" by Donna Ladd. It's an article put out in 2024, but it was covering JD Vance's attendance at 2019's National Conservatism Conference.
I remember we talked about this shit. The Nacos.
Yeah, the
We're
Nacos.
not Nazis.
Yes.
We're Nat-Cs.
Yeah, exactly. These same people.
Yeah.
These same fucking people. He gave a speech at 2019's talking about vaguely what we know of as his far right populism that we see today in the White House. Of course, this was still when he was a Donald Trump critic, more on his like sort of populist arc at the time. And he talked a lot about having children and policies like, you know, giving money to people for having children. And he even used a lot of like the dog whistle language that we see in the far right, like when they talk about needing more children to replace our people is specific wording he used. And I think this piece does a really great job of digging into the history of a lot of the connections to eugenicism and JD Vance's, and not even just JD Vance's, but like sort of the natalist anti-immigrant ideology that we see manifesting today.
So what do you think he meant when he said our people, June?
I think white people. I think that's explicitly white conservative individuals is what he's talking about there.
Clearly.
And I think one of the most interesting things about this piece generally is the connection. I'd never realized this, but one of Charles Darwin's sons was a massive and like really important eugenicist and like a pioneer in the subject in the late 1800s. I had never known that before.
And this article also had a shout out to our friend of the show, Henry Fairfield Osborne, the old line eugenicist, who we talked about quite a bit in our episode about eugenics.
But, you know, while I was going through the NatCos, the Nazis principle, they have these things called the NatC, the National Conservative Principles.
The NatC principles. Very good.
Yeah. And there's 10 of them. There's a list. We got a list. It's been a minute.
I feel like we should clarify. They do not call them the NatC principles. They're not quite that brazen, but they might as well be.
Yeah. They call themselves national conservatives. That's very
insane.
If you call yourself national, you know, anything, especially if you're on the far right, there's a lot of implications there, obviously. So I just want to go through some of these. I'm going to read through all of them, but I think for our purposes today, only like 2 of them are worth discussing here. So the first one is national independence. The second is rejection of imperialism and globalism, which I think is just very funny given JD Vance is involved in probably the biggest blunder of a war in Iran that we've ever seen.
June, the New York Times told me that JD Vance was the one who kept trying to get us out of it. So I don't know. I don't know what your issue is.
You know what? I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to take a stand here. I don't trust him. No. I just don't.
I know this is actually, no, this isn't off topic. The episode is called JD Vance. I just fucking love how he has been going to the New York Times on background like every fucking week now. And every fucking week we get a new article that's like, well, Iran would have been solved by now if JD Vance was simply allowed to do the kind of diplomacy he wanted to do.
No!
According to unnamed sources in the White House. And it's like, oh, which ones? Which ones might have said something like that?
JD Vance himself. Fucking Christ. No, the way that he is sort of trying to position himself as sort of like the skeptical voice within the White House on specifically like the war in Iran has been driving me insane.
Infuriating.
Yeah, because he's publicly defended it throughout this entire process. I mean, he's sort of gone dark. So I wasn't going to touch too much on his millennial posting on Twitter. I think it's an interesting aspect of how he functions as a vice president.
JD Vance, when the U.S. goes to war with Iran. So we just did a thing.
Yeah, that's essentially the tier of shit he posts. Like, I mean, he was posting endlessly, like taunting people during, you know, like the ICE raids in Minneapolis. And even after 2 people got killed, Renee Good and Alex Britti, he was like gloating. He was doing like epic Lord posting about like, how about you just follow the law? Like doing that sort of like bullshit. JD Vance has been doing that this entire time. He has gone dark a little bit in posting ever since the war in Iran started. I do not believe for one second he wouldn't have just done the same thing. Obviously, this comes down on Trump, but JD Vance has absolutely implications in starting this war and every bit of it.
This is all tactical. He
100%.
Has realized that Trump has lost the juice, and the prospect of a third Trump term, at least at this time, looks extremely unlikely. And that means that what he needs to do now is position himself as the adult in the room so that come 2028, he can run on, if it were up to me, it wouldn't have happened like that. You know?
Exactly. It's very strategic. He's thinking long term. That is absolutely something he is going to do. I think it's either going to be him doing that or Tucker Carlson attempting to do that. It'll be both. Sort of like,
the big question is if they're going to sort of create an alliance or if they're both going to run. But both of them will be in the conversation for 2028.
Personally, I think those two are the most aligned. And you know, I absolutely do not trust either of them are telling the truth about any of this at all. No. But they will position themselves like that. And I think they will link up in that way. All of this is multiple years away, though. So hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, a lot of things could happen. Maybe it will happen. Who knows?
Number 3 is national government. 4 is God and public religion. I think that's one of the more notable ones. We'll get back to that in a second. Number 5 is the rule of law, that consistent rule of law thing that conservatives are always talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, the rule of law is certainly something that has been top of mind in the United States of America during the second Trump term. Fuck off.
Yeah, all of this is like fucking... You just can never trust conservatives. Number 6 is free enterprise. 7 is public research. Also not a thing in this Trump term. Yeah, all of this is just wrong.
The public university, that thing that is doing so well right now.
Yeah, they're fucking destroying every research institute at most universities that they can. The reason that I'm talking about these principles is JD Vance was nominally from this world. This was his people.
Right.
And look at him now. Like, look at the fucking shit he's doing now. And the other notable one, number 8, is family and children. They have a portion about family and children. And then the last 2 are immigration, and the last one is race.
They have an entire point in their principles about race?
They do. It's like it's the thing that conservatives tend to do, where it's like, we don't see race. Everyone is equal. Like, it's sort of like that. It's like, it's about oppression is bad. Yeah, but we're not there anymore. It's basically boilerplate, that sort of ideology. But number 4, which was God and public religion, what they're saying in this one is that though people of different religions should be able to practice those other religions, that the United States should center Christianity as like the underlying ideology of this, like the political movement. Christianity is the dominant ideology. That is the dominant religion. But they will allow other religions to function.
I've got the document up, and this is so weird. Like, actually reading the words. No nation can long endure without humility and gratitude before God and fear of his judgment that are found in authentic religious tradition.
Exactly. They're the type of people that were like, the United States was always a Christian nation.
Authentic, though. Not these fake religious traditions. Which also, doesn't that mean that we have to get rid of Mormons? Whatever. I don't care. Sorry, shots fired in the direction of the LDS Church. Provo on notice. Where a Christian majority exists, public life should be rooted in Christianity and its moral vision, which should be honored by the state and other institutions, both public and private. At the same time, Jews and other religious minorities are to be protected in the observance of their own traditions. That's crazy.
I love Jews and others. That's so good.
That's so fucking anti-Semitic. Like, it's like all of these weird. It makes me mad. Okay.
But this is like the type of shit that this is their guiding principles. This is the type of stuff that these people that all attended this conference nominally support and believe. These are what they base their life and politics around.
And can you imagine the fucking shit they were saying about Jews behind closed doors? Like, I just...
Yeah, these Nazis, am I right?
Okay.
And
got him.
And then I think just the last one, family and children. It is, again, the same thing that we always fucking see when they talk about the family or children. It's heteronormative, like the marriage is a man and a woman. They should have children. There should be, we should have an increased birth rate because the childbirth is declining.
And
the declining of
gravely
marriage
threatens the well-being and sustainability of democratic nations, according to this document. And among the causes are an unconstrained individualism that regards children as a burden while encouraging ever more radical forms of sexual license and experimentation.
And you know what that means. Gay, being transgender, not living that cis heteronormative lifestyle that these people want to, I think, enforce upon everyone that they can. This is the sort of stuff, this is where JD Vance comes from. These are his people. These are the people that inform, I think, where he came from and where he is now. Overall, a really fantastic piece that we referenced earlier. I think it's a worthwhile read, especially learning more. The National Conservatives, the National Conservative Conference is just endlessly fascinating to me, especially when it just keeps coming up whenever I'm digging into stuff recently. Not a great sign, I suppose. But but it's fascinating. Weird group of people. So we've spent a lot of time talking about JD Vance so far, but I do think it's really important that we talk about his wife, Usha Vance, as well. She is a very active part, I think, of the JD Vance long-term project. Before we get into what she's been up to, I think we do need to remember that she buys into the same exact agenda JD Vance does. She used to be a registered Democrat, but it doesn't mean that she's being held hostage by JD Vance. She's totally on board. I think it really frustrates me whenever you see people online or even on the news talking about how this wife of this horrible man in power, like Melania, she's a hostage. She's not that bad. We have to save her. We have to free her. She's being held captive, and that's just usually not true. I think people tend to make a mistake when they engage in that sort of logic because women can be bad. They can have bad politics. If they are married to this man, JD Vance, she probably has the same bad politics, or albeit fairly similar, fairly close.
There's no reason to assume that she doesn't, right?
Exactly.
To spin up any other narrative is wish casting, and it's also benevolent sexism.
Yeah.
It sort of ties into the thing that the letter writer was talking about at the beginning.
Yes.
It's this idea of well, if she's a woman, that means that she's more sensitive, more nurturing.
Yes.
These are ideas that she probably doesn't hold because as a woman, she probably just cares more. It's fucking prove it.
Yeah, no, I hope people move away from that sort of line of thinking, especially on the left criticizing the right, because it's, I think, ultimately useless. It's not a real critique of someone to be well, they could theoretically maybe be good. It's well, let's deal with what we got in front of us.
Yeah.
And we're going to deal with the Usha Vance that we currently have in front of us today. So I think ultimately the reason that finally pushed me to want to talk about the Vances was I saw a couple of weeks ago that Usha Vance launched a podcast.
Oh, finally, a new podcast.
Yeah, everyone.
I've been hoping for another one of those.
Especially in this administration. The one thing that everyone is always asking is which member of the cabinet or family of the administration is going to start a new podcast. We have the Katie Miller podcast. We're going to have the RFK Jr. podcast. We now have the Usha Vance podcast.
And I would ask who listens to this shit, but the answer is nobody.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really interesting. I had seen that the numbers came out recently about Tucker Carlson's thing, and he's had 7,000 lifetime paid subscribers or something like that. That's not even active subs. That's just the number of people who have ever given him money. And it just reminds you, oh yeah, it's not that there's no organic demand for this, but the amount of organic demand is far outstripped by the astroturfing that they use to sort of pump this shit up.
Yeah, no, I think that's a whole other discussion. I think that is really important because it is really important to know that they are doing podcasts and attempting to do this astroturfing, of course, as propaganda. If you're interested in that conversation, Caleb and I, speaking of Kill the Computer Again, are going to be doing an episode about this sort of the way that astroturfing through algorithmic tricks sort of functions. Kick, the streaming platform, engages in it all the time. It's the only reason that we know who Clavicular is right. This manipulation of algorithms.
Rumble is the same way.
Yeah. There is I've been digging a lot into how to manipulate a lot algorithms generally, and not for my own gains, but just how these people, these organizations, these fairly evil individuals engage in that. I also just think, though, it is fascinating that this administration has really leaned into podcasts as a form of propaganda. It seems to be their go-to. In the election, Trump went on a lot of podcasts, made all the rounds, Joe Rogan, all those people. And now that they're in, they start a new podcast every other fucking month at this point.
Well, and they hired so many podcasters in, Dan Bongino, rest in peace.
Yeah, Dan Bongino. And Kash Patel, he used to be a huge guest on different podcasts. He was, I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but he had gone on 20 or 30 plus different individual appearances on podcasts. He was most of the people that we know of in Trump's term have been big podcast sphere people.
Dozens and dozens of podcast guest appearances. They're calling him the Josh Borman of the right.
I didn't know you and Cash were colleagues like that. Damn.
Insofar as we go on other podcasts, yes.
Contemporaries, yeah. Yeah, you and him are a bit of contemporaries.
The other big thing we have in common, our love for the U.S. men's national hockey team.
So this new podcast, you might be wondering, what's it about? It's a podcast actually aimed at children, which is why I found it so fascinating. Of course, it continues to sort of feed into the Vance's project of the family.
And this is the thing that every child has been banging down the doors demanding, obviously, is I want a podcast from the vice president's wife. This is something that I, a 5-year-old, need.
They've been begging for it.
Fuck Bluey. Fuck Coco Melon. I want my Usha Vance.
Everyone knows and loves Second Lady Usha Vance. So it's a reading. It's a Storytime podcast. It's called Storytime with the Second Lady. And as of currently recording, there's only 4 episodes out. And to my genuine surprise, I went into this thinking it was going to be like some exercise in anti-wokeness. There's going to be like some real clear propagandistic lines here. But she's actually just straight up reading fairly boilerplate standard children's books, like the classics, like The Tale of Peter Rabbit.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree.
And like Disney's Cars, like she's reading like generally normal things.
That classic of children's literature, Disney's Cars. Yes.
Look, kids these days, it's a different world for them. That is standard probably for like 5-year-olds these days. It's a different world. If you had me guess, I would have assumed it was going to be like some Riley Gaines bullshit, like one of her books. Speaking of, she has a fucking book, a children's book, which a lot of these sort of grifters on the right seem to get deals for children's books these days. I don't know if you've noticed that, but there's a big ecosystem of that.
There is it's where the money is. Nobody's actually buying this shit. I mean, some people are buying it, but mostly it's just that the project understands that there is tremendous utility in putting this shit in print because you can easily distribute it. You can easily pump those numbers up to make it look like they are selling better than they are by just having the publisher buy their own books back. And you can influence the culture in a way that can cause material change. This is something that Focus on the Family understood very early on in the culture wars.
And it's certainly why they're engaging, they being this current administration, a lot of people on the right, engaging so much with podcasts right now. That's sort of like the blossoming new battleground of propaganda.
Oh my God.
They do it for everything.
I'm just imagining them like getting into TikTok dances where they like do the TikTok dance and then they're like, trans women aren't women.
That's so funny you mentioned that, though. They have done that on the Katie Miller's podcast when she had fucking Nicki Minaj on to promo it. They did like a TikTok dance.
You cannot be serious.
They did a TikTok trend to promote the podcast. They did that already. Yes, and it's just as god awful as you would imagine it would be. Yeah. But that's sort of like they really do engage with propaganda on every level. Like I hate. This is literally not me saying this in a positive way, but they are really effective at propaganda. Maybe it doesn't work, but in terms of knowing the battlegrounds of propaganda and where it is currently, they're really good at analyzing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just depends on what you mean by worked, right? Like worked in the sense of changing everybody's opinion and creating that change. Of course not.
Yeah,
but it's a shotgun blast. It's different vectors to attack different people in different areas, and all you have to do is plant a seed in one place, and that seed can potentially flower later on.
Absolutely. Before we move back to Usha Vance, I do want to talk about this book, this Riley Gaines book that I found here, just because I found this review of the book from someone who is, of course, critical of Riley Gaines and the right. But there's this wonderful little tidbit where she goes through it, and they fucking published a typo in the book. There is a fucking typo, which, not a huge deal. It doesn't really matter, but it's the quality of stuff that you'll see from Brave Books.
Oh, you're telling me Brave Books doesn't have great quality control? I'm shocked.
It doesn't seem to be. Usha Vance isn't reading stuff like this. Honestly, I was shocked. I thought a lot of this episode was going to be talking about different episodes of maybe these different books of different people she'd have on the show, but it's just not really what it is.
So what is she trying to do?
I think, as we know, no one really likes JD Vance. They're sort of a package. I think this is sort of an attempt to iron over some of the bumpy parts of JD Vance's current the way he is perceived by people, for like a long-term like presidential run. It's like, oh, look at what she did. We're like the idealized family. We're the perfect family. We'll be like this power duo if we run for president. Is like what they're setting up.
She's not super likable either.
She's not.
I mean, she's not as like weird and uncanny and gross as JD Vance, but she's not a charisma magnet either.
Not really. Throughout this term so far, she's sort of just been on the sidelines this whole time. We don't really hear from her very often. This new podcast seems to be really the only interviews we've really seen of her or with her, other than just talking about like her past or like her being pregnant with another child, which she currently is. The thing is they don't have to be successful. I don't think ultimately JD Vance or Usha Vance as a power couple or alone will have the sauce to become president. I think that's what they're trying to do, though. I think they're trying to set up this like potential like handoff of JD Vance is the next guy.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a part of
the
that.
heir apparent.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and obviously we know that Melania is the most incredible first lady we've ever had. We saw the movie.
Anti-bullying.
She told everyone to be best.
No more bullying, especially cyberbullying.
That's right.
We have to stop that. Yeah. Her stated reason for starting this podcast, though, is that she has always had a passion for reading, and she has concerns about dropping literacy rates among children, which I guess I didn't know that was the case. It's not a major drop, but there has been a slight decrease in literacy rates. So I guess it was a perfect excuse for this to be her project during this administration.
Well, it's a good thing that the Trump-Vance administration is so dedicated to making sure that schools are adequately funded through the Federal Department of Education, and that mega corporations like Google don't exert an undue amount of influence over educational systems nationwide. Wait, hold on. I'm getting an update. I'm getting an update on the ill-conceived newswire that tells me that these things are, in fact, not something they care about.
Turns out they're a bunch of fucking liars.
Son of a bitch.
It turns out when they said they wanted to abolish the education department, they really meant it. Is this working? Is this working at all? Is this project of starting this? It's early. Podcasts don't always start with like hundreds of thousands of listeners.
Ours
Obviously,
didn't.
It's just how it is. No.
Now it has millions of listeners.
Yeah. But like, just like she has to build up to where we're at
exactly
with this show. And for like about a month into this podcast, I got to be honest, it's not looking good for her. And of course, it is a children's podcast, but it only has 2,450 subscribers as of writing this up.
That's not great.
It might have gained 1 or 2 more in the last 2 days. I am not aware. I have not looked, but it's not a lot. And that might be like, oh, of course, because it's like a reading educational content for kids on YouTube. But we have to remember, children's educational content on YouTube is massive. It is like the biggest industry on YouTube itself right now. It is a fucking gold mine. People pivot to educational children's content because that is just where it's popping off. Children love YouTube. They're addicted to it. They want more. They love it. Miss Rachel, we all know Miss Rachel.
We do.
She has nearly 20 million subscribers. Every video she puts out gets millions, tens of millions of views. So it's like, this is a massive industry, and she just can't, she isn't breaking in. It's just not effective propaganda.
And it's interesting too, because back to the natalist piece, they are presumably trying to establish some veneer of legitimacy here. Like, it's not just a narrative technique, although it is also that. It's also Usha, when she becomes the first lady, is going to be the education first lady, and we're going to love her because she's such a nice lady who gives a shit about
and the
children's literacy, and the kids love her. But like, the kids don't love her, clearly.
Yeah.
And no amount of sweatiness is going to make that happen. And so you have to wonder why. Why are they trying to spin up this narrative that ultimately is self-evidently untrue?
Why do you think it is?
I think that grounding the project so that it's more than just concerns about, oh no, the birth rate, or oh no, the children, in a very fuzzy sense, requires setting down a couple flagpoles about what it is that you are going to be fighting for. The thing about education, though, is that it is such a complex thing with so many moving parts, which is obviously not how this White House sees the problem. They see it in very simplistic terms. And the way they see everything in very simplistic terms. But if I think that from their perspective, if they can ground themselves as subject matter experts, or at least people who have the veneer of legitimacy, then they can be like, oh yeah, we know this thing. We've known this thing. Hell, Usha, she's done a podcast about it for children. That makes her an expert, right? And that then allows them to operate from a position of strength on the issue, because then they can also say, well, no, we're not trying to destroy the thing. We care. What do you mean we're trying to tear down education? No, we want to make education better. We love kids. And we love having kids, and we would love for you to have more kids. We are going to make you have more kids.
Yeah. No, that's such a good point. I mean, this is sort of the same tactic that for a long time homophobic people have used on the far right of, oh, we don't hate gay people. We just don't want you to go to hell. We just know that you're sinning. We don't hate the sinner. We just hate the sin. It is sort of a reframing of the conversation in their own turf.
Yeah.
I think you're on point with that.
And it's not a perfect comparison, but to the point of like the narrative about gay people, that is why you will see the right spin up a bunch of stuff like Love One Out, which I don't think we've actually talked about on this show before, but that is something that is connected to Focus on the Family and also sort of an offshoot of Promise Keepers.
I'm actually not familiar with Love One Out. This is the first I think I've heard of it.
Love One Out, it no longer exists, but for a long time, it was an organization that was like, we are a ministry to gay people. We are a ministry for Christians or people who feel like they ought to be Christians or want to be Christians who are struggling with same-sex attraction.
So it's like a conversion therapy tactic.
It's the top of the funnel into the conversion therapy pipeline, yes. But they don't lead with that. They lead with, we care. In fact, we love gay people, just as God loves gay people. Yeah. Don't look into the rest of what we want to do to gay people.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right about all of this. I mean, I think JD Vance is smart enough to know that when people hear like white replacement theory, that they will probably recoil at that, rightfully so. So they have to like bury that lead that's like the thing they believe. They have to talk about like, oh, we just love family. We love kids. We have kids. We love children. And then they get to that shit. Yeah.
To the point of white replacement theory as well, we didn't actually explicitly note that Usha Vance is not white.
No.
She's Telugu Indian. We've talked about people on this show before, people like Balaji Srinivasan, for instance, who come from these very wealthy families who have, I guess, proximity to whiteness, and clearly their policy goals are aligned with those of white supremacy, but they themselves are not white.
Right. And she's a great example of that. And I think why she's been treated like that way for a long time by like liberals, where it's like, oh, she's being held captive by her white supremacy husband. And it's like, that is, I think, the most interesting tensions of like her and JD Vance and being in the White House is that she's not white. She's Indian. She is a second generation Indian American. And with all of this, it's like JD Vance supports the most radical aspects of ICE that we've seen in this administration. He was explicitly endorsing like the murder of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and he was like gloating about it. He was fucking reveling in it. In Minneapolis, he was fucking giddy. He does his whole fucking millennial ass actually killing civilians isn't so bad bullshit that he did for quite a while at the start of this year of 2026. I mean, he spun up the rhetoric of in Ohio, the Haitians, immigrants eating cats and dogs. Like he knew what he was doing with that. He did an interview, or I think he was on a podcast where he was basically like, I'm doing mimetic warfare. I am making this up, knowing it is not true as a narrative function. That is I think the really odd part of their relationship is he really explicitly engages in these white supremacist narratives and structures and governmental structures too with ICE, and a lot of his immigration stances. He's very like anti-immigration as a whole. I mean, he's a big part of this administration's effort to like sort of slow immigration. I mean, especially with like, you know, the southern border. I'm just consistently baffled at how they sort of see the fairly blatant white supremacy, especially with JD Vance having close ties to a lot of people, and himself, I think, believing in white replacement theory and talking about birth rates and like white birth rates in particular, and a lot of these like really bad pro-natalist like spheres and agendas. As far as Usha Vance being complicit in this administration and JD Vance, I wish I could know more about her thoughts on like some of that stuff, like white supremacy and like white replacement theory, or generally. Like we will never get it. No. We will never get it. But I'm so curious.
I would imagine, and obviously this is speculation. This is Josh's speculation disclosure. Yeah. You get a lot of people who are like this. Their identity is not the identity that aligns with the power structure. But because they benefit from a component of the power structure, they're like, well, it works well for me. And the fact that it's not working well for these other people at the end of the day must just be their fault.
Yeah.
You see this with gay Republicans, the fucking Peter Thiels of the world, to use an extreme example, or just your garden variety log cabin Republican for that matter, who somehow managed to separate out the fact that their political alignment is one that is contributing to the oppression of queer people in every way, but they're able to somehow distance themselves from it by saying, I'm not quite like them, or they're not quite like me, or
I'm one of the good ones.
I'm one of the good ones. I can't fully understand. I don't understand what the thing is. I still don't. But it's something that I see.
We're both white. It's hard for, I think, us to analyze it from that vector specifically, but I think generally it makes sense that they are like in proximity of that power themselves. They are within the empire. They are wielding that empire.
They benefit from access to that thing. Therefore, they don't have a vested interest in critiquing that power, even if at the end of the day, there's something in their gut that tells them that something is not quite right. And I feel like that's got to be the case for just about everybody.
I think so. You once you taste those fruits of the imperial core, those real benefits of wielding that power, I does think change people, especially because, as we know, Usha Vance used to be a registered Democrat. I think her evolution alongside JD Vance's with his political ascendancy has probably changed her perspective on a lot of these different things that she probably used to take firm stances on in the past. And I do think that's proximity to actual real power. And I think that's why JD Vance ultimately joined Donald Trump's administration as vice president. And even though he used to call him Hitler.
Yeah, he had to swallow some of his own pride to do that.
Yeah, it's all proximity to what matters most to them, which is power. So I think in terms of Usha Vance, that's honestly most of what I have to say about her specifically as an individual in this administration so far. She is currently pregnant as of recording. She is due in July with their fourth baby, and you fucking know they're going to be annoying as hell about it. They're going to make a big deal.
So fucking annoying about it.
It's going to be so bad. It's going to be the worst. It's going to be a whole media narrative. We're going to talk about it we're going to talk about but the general media will probably talk about it too.
Liberals are going to get like debated into saying stuff that sounds facially anti-family, and then The Blaze and fucking Town Hall and Daily Wire and all those outlets, it's going to be a fucking bonanza for them.
The triggered libs.
They're going to be like, they'll run the Ballerina Farms playbook, right? Of like, oh, they only care about families when they're the kind of families that they think are acceptable. But when our beautiful vice president and his beautiful wife have a beautiful baby who's not even fully white, by the way, they turn around and they say that it's bad.
Yup, the trigger libs once again. Their favorite. It's the only thing that they have, these propaganda outlets. That's going to happen. We'll probably talk about it on a B-Sides. But generally, I think the ultimate through line that I think JD Vance and a lot of Republicans for decades, of course, but especially JD Vance, they love to talk about how they are pro-family and the left is anti-family. And they use that in the election cycle in 2024. That narrative always means certain things, right? Like the Democrats as a political party, if we're being honest, they are not anti-family, like on no true level, not even in like the truest sense that I think I am anti-family in the sense of like how it relates to capitalism.
The capitalist conception of the nuclear family. Sure.
Exactly. That's like sort of my critique. The Democratic Party does not have that critique generally. So even like in bare reality, like they're just not anti-family. They truly are a pro-family political party, the Democrats. But whenever Republicans talk about this, it what they mean is it's an anti-feminist sort of signal that like when they call something anti-family, it's essentially calling something blue-haired liberal with pronouns.
But I think it's important to understand that in this Christian conception of what the family is, they do see feminism as an existential threat. It's not just posturing. This is coming from a genuine place of concern, which, from my perspective, is stupid and bad and wrong. But I think that a big mistake that a lot of people make is that they think that when orgs like Focus on the Family, to use my favorite example, throw out all this shit about how like, oh, the Democrats, they hate your family and they're trying to fucking trans your kids or whatever, that they're doing it because they just think it plays well, as opposed to being something that is coming from a true considered place of genuine belief.
I completely agree. The concept of the nuclear family, I mean, it's such a fascinating discussion and like topic to me. It's especially being like a queer person. The nuclear family is just like not like the perception of the world I live in or see myself ever living in. It's never really been something that I saw for myself in like the traditional sense, especially because like attacking the nuclear family absolutely subverts like capitalism and the far right's Christian nationalist like agenda. The nuclear family is so important to their project. It is that cis heteronormative structure that they truly do desire and want for this world. And feminism is, I think you have to have a critique of capitalism, but feminism on a base level is absolutely a threat to this and has been a threat to it. And I think that's good. The way that these people on the right, especially the Christian world, have always used this is to attack like abortion rights. Like abortion is anti-family because it kills babies. It's killing these children. It's also been used to signal homophobia and transphobia, which like queerness is an attack on conservative like conception of family. So of course, these conservatives like Focus on the Family and the Heritage Foundation do see that as a threat to them. All of this to say is when they say people are anti-family, it means so many different things. And JD Vance, I think, wants you to believe that it's just about having children. Mm-hmm. When it's like, I don't think Democrats think that. But it's also so much more than just the birth rate in terms of how the right talks about anti-family.
Yeah. And one piece of criticism that I've heard people have with our show is that we take the premise of the natalists too seriously. And I mean, I don't agree with that, obviously.
Me either. Yeah.
I disagree with my haters. Because I think there is a difference between treating the premise as valid, which I don't think we do fundamentally. I don't think that we think that their premise is valid or even a good faith premise at all.
I mean, we're doing this show because we don't think any of these narratives are valid.
Right.
That's the entire purpose.
But you do have to acknowledge the fact that these are narratives that do have heft to them. They are real narratives, and that this line of rhetoric is, for a lot of people, convincing.
I do this sometimes, like just saying someone's dumb, like saying someone on the right is stupid. The thing is they actually believe these things that I think are stupid.
Their ideas being stupid isn't going to make the ideas go away.
Exactly. There's only so much hypocrisy, like shaming or
Right.
like making it, like pointing out hypocrisies.
Yeah, that shit doesn't fucking work at all. If there's one thing that the Trump era has taught us, it's that saying, hey, wait a minute, that's different from the thing you said before. That shit doesn't fucking work. Like, nobody cares.
And it's only seemingly having an impact right now because it is affecting people's lives in their pockets, which I hate. I hate that it takes gas prices rising for people to take seriously that we're like killing children in Iran. I think that's horrible, but that's just sort of the reality that we have to deal with. I think strategy and like the analysis of that strategy are two important things.
The USA bombs 200 Iranian schoolgirls to death. I sleep. Gas hits $4 a gallon. Real shit.
God, yeah, and they're the pro-family ones. God damn. So another, I think, fascinating aspect of JD Vance, and I think it's super load-bearing for where he is right now, is his adult conversion to Catholicism. He did it about 7 years ago. And as we've seen recently, he's been like directly feuding with the previous and now current Catholic popes, which I think has been one of the funniest things to happen in the last like year. Is every time like the Pope will be like, we should not kill children. And JD Vance is like, get a load of this fucking loser.
The only way that this could get funnier is if he gets excommunicated, which isn't gonna happen. But like, God, I want it to happen.
Yeah, it would be the greatest thing of all time. Turns out, though, the Chicagoan Pope is another woke Pope.
My understanding is he's still not a huge fan of gay people. The woke Pope, the so-called woke Pope.
See, this is the thing: is it's woke in the frame of Catholics, which for them, he's as woke as a Catholic structurally can be.
True.
Within the church. Which, you're right. He is still very conservative on like abortion and IVF, all the same positions that the Catholic Church has always believed in. Catholics, we've talked a lot about Catholics on this show. I think analyzing Catholicism, especially as like a kind of separate entity from Christianity and Protestantism, is like really
That's so right, June. Catholics aren't Christian. You said it, not me.
As someone who grew up Catholic, that would have killed me. That someone would kill me in my elementary school. They are not. They're not like other Christians.
Not like the other girls.
I think the type of Catholicism that adult Catholic converts seem to gravitate towards is always like an older version of Catholicism. It's not like sort of represented by what the general Catholic believes today, like growing up with it, or even within the church a lot of the time. Like, especially with the last, as I mentioned before, the last and current Pope, JD Vance beefs with them all the time. And a lot of conservatives have real problems with the popes. They always call them woke. They call them fucking woke, which it's like, well, not really, like, I was joking about it before, but they're not like really woke, but they do call them that all the time.
Well, to me, it feels like it is first and foremost about the aesthetic.
Yes.
And I don't just mean like the visual, the audio visual aesthetic, which is distinct, by the way. That's actually just the theme from Halo. But
I played Halo.
Oh yeah, you should be playing Marathon.
God, I know, I would love it. That's the thing, is I would enjoy it one of these days.
By aesthetic, I also mean the idea of something and what it represents in a cultural context. There's a quote that you put in this outline here from an article, JD Vance used to be an atheist, what he believes now is telling, by Molly Olmstead, and I want to read it.
Yeah.
In 2021, when JD Vance was asked at a conference why he had converted to Catholicism just 2 years earlier, he had a fairly simple answer. But as Vance would explain at that 2021 conference, held by the Napa Institute, a conservative Catholic organization, he was also drawn to Catholicism for its rules and relative stability over centuries. I felt like the modern world was constantly in flux, Vance said. The things you believed 10 years ago were no longer acceptable to believe 10 years later. We have, I believe, a civilizational crisis in this country, Vance said at the 2021 Napa Institute event. Even among healthy, intact families, they're not having enough kids such that we're going to have a long-term future in this country. For his Senate campaign, also in 2021, Vance praised Hungarian strongman Viktor Orbán for policies that incentivized marriage and children. Orbán's government had offered loans to married couples that were forgiven if the couple stayed together and had 3 children. Orbán is not himself Catholic, but has privileged Christianity in a country dominated by Catholicism. Why can't we do that here? Vance asked. Why can't we actually promote family formation? And what jumps out to me about this is this, like, Catholicism being stable and staying the same over the course of that's not true at
never
all.
The case.
That's never been the case about Catholicism.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess,
Never.
Sure, in the sense that the Roman Catholic Church has existed for that period of time, but like there were many points at which there were popes and anti-popes. Like,
yeah. I think the thing that's really interesting, and I think what draws him and a lot of other people like him that convert at an older age is that structure, is the opulence of it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times I hear this all the time from people that I know that aren't even Catholic, that are sort of drawn in by the opulence, by the aesthetic. It is sort of an aesthetic thing. When you grew up being a Catholic, that stuff is just sort of really boring. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a kid, I was just really bored by how slow everything was. It was like the routine of it. But for people like JD Vance, especially like, you know, more conservative leaning people, that is sort of their favorite part.
Yeah.
Is the old feel of it.
Well, and that's, I think, too, why some of these people then end up pivoting again into Orthodox Christianity,
yes,
which is even more ornate and ritualistic and sensual, right? With the incense and the huge, beautiful icons and all of that kind of thing.
It's really funny that you mention Orthodoxy and why a lot of people do end up doing this. Rod Dreher, someone who has long been associated with JD Vance. We've never really talked about Rod Dreher on the show, but he's like a conservative, used to be a Catholic, now he's an Eastern Orthodox convert. And I do think
he is 100% heterosexual, folks. On knowledge and belief, straight man.
His thoughts are very normal. Anytime he writes about sexuality and his own relation to it, it's very normal.
Very normal.
Don't look a little bit deeper into that. All of this to say is, I do think, you know, let him cook long enough with this Catholicism. I do suspect we might see an Eastern Orthodox arc from JD Vance, because I think it's just sort of logical. I think he has connections to Rod Dreher in that way. I think they are sort of similarly minded, especially with their love with Hungary. You know, Rod Dreher was a big Viktor Orbán proponent too. Turns out, I don't know if you saw this, but I think CPAC was getting funded by the Hungarian government.
Really?
That came out after Viktor Orbán lost this election. Is the new guy came in and was like, we're going to end these things. And one of them was like money funding CPAC.
Oh, wow. I'm seeing these are, it has not yet been confirmed, but there are strong allegations that allegedly, I am reading this, I want to be very clear about this, allegedly Hungary's government under the leadership of outgoing Prime Minister Viktor Orbán did in fact fund CPAC with taxpayer money, which is almost certainly illegal.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason why there was CPAC Hungary. People in America would go out to Hungary for CPAC events. They hosted them. They would do all of these things. Fascism is a global project. These people work together. Like Viktor Orbán, you know, I was so happy when I saw he lost, but I don't think people realize just how good it was when he lost, even if the new guy is still sort of center-right. Just the fact that Viktor Orbán lost and this alleged connection to the American government is shattered is a good thing. JD Vance's religiousness is very backwards looking, and he has a love for societal rules imposed by Christian nationalism, Catholic, his views of Catholicism. And I think that really does inform why he has now worked alongside of like the Heritage Foundation and is a big proponent of these backsliding reforms proposed in Project 2025, which again, Heritage Foundation. I think he wants to return to an era that no longer exists and really never did.
Backwards looking, I think, sums up his entire deal. Because conservatism, reactionary conservatism, is, of course, inherently backwards looking. But the nostalgia that they have is an invention.
Yeah.
It's utterly imaginary. Maybe it's just that I'm like getting older. I'm coming up on my 36th birthday in 2 weeks.
And oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. If anybody wants to send me any gifts, it's on May 18. And you can send gifts to...
the mailbag.
That's right. Send me some birthday letters. Send some birthday letters to the world famous mailbag. But I don't know. I've just been thinking, I'm not that much younger than JD Vance, right? And I've been thinking about the way that I also have some commonalities with that guy in that I grew up in the Midwest. There are aspects of the world that I grew up in that I think are just backwards and stupid, frankly. There are parts of the world that I grew up in where I just don't understand how people could be content to live that kind of life because it's so different from the life that I want for myself. Mm-hmm. And it was a world that I grew up in that was inherently conservative in many, many ways. We drew first principles from this is how things have always been done. But I don't understand how you go from that kind of a background to being like, I don't want to have my life be sort of trapped in the death spiral that I grew up in. Instead, I want to convert to a religion and live a way of life that is trapped in a different death spiral. Like, what the fuck is that all about?
It's baffling. And I think something that we see more, especially now that everyone has access to the internet, is we see the way that people talk about like their childhood or just like nostalgia for their youth,
right,
for a previous era. And it's like, I don't even think a lot of the time their nostalgia is based off of anything that's real.
No.
I think it's just sort of, getting older.
Yeah.
It's like it's just understanding more about the world. I feel I've had this theory for a while now. If anyone listening wants to attempt this, I just haven't done this because I'm not a great video editor, but I feel like you could put like a grainy filter over any video and say it's an old video, and it will make people nostalgic for something entirely fake.
There are some YouTube channels that I enjoy watching where it is new video that is being shot and edited on old high-8 cameras.
Yes.
And you see these videos that are shot in like shopping centers or just out and about with cats or whatever. And it gives you that feeling, even though it's not actually from back then. It just feels like it is because it has the trappings, which again comes back to the thing that at the end of the day, so much of this is just driven by an aesthetic that has no underpinning ideology to it other than this vague nostalgic sense of we need to go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see that manifest in the way that social media, in this administration, that they post on social media, they'll make those edits. They'll sort of do that grainy filter effect on certain
boomer bait AI slop.
Yeah, like all of this stuff. The way that nostalgia relates to especially fascism, but just politics generally, is fascinating, and I think it plays a much bigger role in how the far right views the world than I think people realize.
And also, to go one further with that, that's why the only way that you can effectively fight back is by telling new stories. If the counterpoint to this movement, if the left or whoever it is who wants to fight these fuckers just goes back to the well and is like, well, they think that back in the day it was like this, but actually back in the day it was like this. You're gonna fucking lose. Mm-hmm. Because nobody can outdo conservatives on pandering to nostalgia.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we see people like Zoran Mamdani in New York effectively counter these people.
Exactly.
In that forward-looking way. You have to look forward.
He is offering the promise of a new future, a city that looks and works fundamentally better than it did in the past because it is willing to try new things. And he's not even promising that all of these things are going to work out. He's just saying, we're going to try these things, and I believe that in aggregate, these things will make your life better. That's a promise that people can get behind.
It's very important to operate that way rather than the but actually sort of politics that I think we've seen, especially from, the Obama era and the Clinton era and those worlds. They're ineffective.
Maybe one more strongly worded letter from Hakeem Jeffries will change everything,
One more Chuck Schumer taco Trump video
will do it.
Yeah, that's gonna fix things. So on top of having a new child, their fourth child in July, JD Vance is releasing a new book.
Oh, no.
Called, I know, it's something everyone also wants, is they wanted the Usha Vance podcast, and they've been begging for this book called Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith.
Of course.
In June of this year, so really soon, in like a month, which is surely going to be an awful book from the perspective of an odd adult Catholic convert.
The worst person. The cover of this thing is bad. So ugly. They
bad,
totally fucked it on the typography here. The photo's not bad, but it doesn't sit in harmony with the title and author of the book at all.
I really don't want to read this, but I might, especially if I can get it illegally.
We might have to read it for the show. Maybe as a Patreon bonus. Patreon.com/illconceived. Maybe.
If we do, it'll be there. And I think if I can get it, if I can read this without paying for it, I would absolutely read it. So when I started research for this episode, there was one thing in my mind this entire time, which is I think my favorite tweet, favorite ever post about adult Catholic converts I've ever seen. It describes JD Vance perfectly. Do you want to read it for me?
Every lifelong Catholic I've ever met is like, I think we're supposed to give this food to poor people. And every adult convert is like, the Archon of Constantinople's epistle on the Pentecostine rites of the Eucharist clearly states women shouldn't have driver's licenses. Well, that does it. I'm a Catholic now. That
does it. Yeah, I think we're converted.
That's right.
Yeah, alrighty. I think that's it.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.